The Great Hall of the Galactic Federation was silent. Thousands of alien representatives sat in their seats, watching the scene below. Ambassador Daniel Carter stood alone in the center of the chamber. He was the only human in the room. High Chancellor Vortan of the Nelvari rose from his throne. The Nelvari were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 eyes. They had ruled the Federation for 3,000 years. Vortan looked down at the human with cold eyes. "The Council has reached its decision," Vortan announced. His voice echoed through the massive chamber. "Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Federation. You have 30 days to remove all human presence from Federation space." Daniel felt his heart sink, but he kept his face calm. He had expected this outcome. The vote had been 12-0 against humanity. "May I ask why?" Daniel said. His voice was steady. Counselor Thixera of the Draxians stood up. She was a reptilian creature with scales that shimmered in the light. "Your species is too dangerous. In your short history, you have fought thousands of wars among yourselves. You killed millions of your own kind. No other species in the Federation has such a violent past." Counselor Mintal of the Krill clicked his mandibles in agreement. The Krill were insect-like beings with a hive mind. "We have studied your biology. Your bodies produce chemicals that make you aggressive. You have something called adrenaline that turns you into fighters. This is not normal. This is not safe." Daniel wanted to argue. He wanted to explain that humans had also created art, music, and medicine. He wanted to tell them about love and sacrifice and hope. But he knew it would not matter. Their minds were already made up. "You are afraid of us," Daniel said quietly. Vortan's 4 eyes narrowed. "We are being careful. Your species joined the Federation only 50 years ago. In that time, you have advanced your technology faster than any species in history. It took the Nelvari 2,000 years to develop faster than light travel. Humans did it in 100 years. This is not natural." "We learn quickly," Daniel replied. "Is that a crime?" "It is a threat," Vortan said. "The Council has spoken. You will leave." Far above the planet, Captain Laura Bennett watched from the observation deck of the starship Endeavour. She was a woman in her 40s, with short brown hair and tired eyes. Commander Nathan Brooks stood beside her, along with Chief Science Officer Megan Price. "They actually did it," Nathan said. He could not believe what he was seeing. Dozens of human ships were preparing to leave Federation space. Laura nodded slowly. 50 years of trying to prove ourselves. 50 years of following their rules, respecting their customs, being good neighbors, and they still see us as monsters. Megan looked at the data on her tablet. The vote was not even close. Every species voted against us. Even the Veleron. And we saved their colony from that asteroid 5 years ago. "Fear is stronger than gratitude," Laura said. The communication system beeped. Ambassador Carter's face appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted but not broken. "Captain Bennett, I am sending you the official orders. All human vessels are to proceed to the Outer Rim territories. We have been given coordinates for systems the Federation considers too dangerous for colonization." Laura read the coordinates and frowned. "These areas are in the middle of nebulae and asteroid fields. The radiation levels alone will make settlement extremely difficult." "I know," Daniel said. "They are hoping we will fail. They believe we will die out there in the darkness." Nathan clenched his fists. "Maybe we should show them what humans can really do when we are angry." "No," Daniel said firmly. "That would only prove them right. We will leave peacefully. We will survive. And one day, they will understand their mistake." The human exodus took exactly 30 days. 4 billion humans lived in Federation space. And every single one of them had to leave. They packed their belongings, said goodbye to alien friends who were too scared to protest, and boarded the transport ships. The journey to the Outer Rim took 3 months. The Federation had given them systems that no one else wanted. There were planets covered in toxic gas, moons that shook with constant earthquakes, and asteroid belts that could destroy ships without warning. But humans were stubborn creatures. On the volcanic moon of Kepler 7, Engineer Leo Barnes discovered how to use the heat from the volcanoes to power entire cities. On the toxic planet of Nexus Prime, Dr. Kevin Palmer created air filters that could clean any atmosphere. In the deadly asteroid belt of Sigma Reach, miners found rare metals that no one else had ever discovered. Year after year, humanity grew stronger. Admiral Samuel Grant built a defense network in the Outer Rim. He placed weapons on asteroids, stations in nebulae, and patrol ships everywhere between. If the Federation ever decided to attack, they would find a wall of human resistance. "We were farmers once," Samuel said to his officers during a strategy meeting. "Then we became hunters. Then warriors. Every time the universe tried to kill us, we adapted and became stronger. The Federation thinks they sent us to die. Instead, they gave us freedom." 20 years passed since the exile. The Federation forgot about the humans. They believed the problem had solved itself. Surely, the violent primitives had destroyed themselves by now. They were very wrong. In the Outer Rim, humanity had built something magnificent. Cities floated in the clouds of gas giants. Stations orbited dead stars. Ships traveled faster than anything the Federation had ever created. Human scientists had made discoveries that would have shocked the elder races, and in the shadows, human eyes watched the galaxy they had been forced to leave. Laura Bennett, now an admiral herself, stood on the bridge of the new flagship, the Unity. She was older now, with gray in her hair, but her eyes were still sharp. "Report," she said. Her tactical officer pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. "Federation space is quiet. Their military has grown weaker over the years. They have become comfortable. They have forgotten how to fight." "Rupley." Laura nodded. "And us? We have 400 ships ready for combat. Another 200 under construction. Our weapons are better. Our shields are stronger. And our soldiers are well trained." Nathan Brooks entered the bridge. He was a commander no more. Now he was a fleet captain, commanding 50 ships of his own. "The council is meeting," he told Laura. "They want to discuss our next move." Laura looked at the stars through the observation window. Somewhere out there was the Federation that had rejected them. Part of her wanted revenge. Part of her wanted to prove that humans were not the monsters they had been called. "We wait," she said finally. "We watch. And when the time comes, we will decide what kind of species we truly are." The universe had tried to break humanity. It had failed. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, a new threat was coming. A threat that would make the Federation beg for the help of the species they had once feared most. But that is a story for another day. The first warning came from a small observation station at the edge of the galaxy. A young Velaran scientist named Crix was watching his screens when something strange appeared. Thousands of objects were moving toward Federation space from the void between galaxies. Crix sent a message to his superiors. They told him it was probably just asteroids. Space was full of rocks floating around. There was nothing to worry about. 3 weeks later, the observation station went silent. The Federation sent a patrol ship to investigate. They found nothing left of the station. No debris, no bodies, no evidence that it had ever existed. The entire structure had been consumed. High Chancellor Vorton received the report in his private chamber. His 4 eyes read the data again and again. Something had eaten an entire station. Not destroyed it. Eaten it. "What are we dealing with?" he asked his military advisor. Admiral Zix, then of the Valoran Navy, was a respected commander with 200 years of experience. He had never seen anything like this. "We do not know, Chancellor. Our scouts have detected a massive fleet approaching from the galactic edge. We estimate over 50,000 vessels. But they are not like any ships we have ever seen. They appear to be partly organic, partly mechanical." Vorton felt cold. "Do they respond to communication?" "No. We have tried every language, every frequency. They do not acknowledge us at all." The Kethari arrived at the Outer Federation worlds 2 months later. They were not a species, they were a collective. Billions of creatures sharing one mind, one purpose. They consumed everything in their path. Planets, moons, asteroids, ships. They broke matter down into raw materials and used it to build more of themselves. The Nelvari homeworld was the first major target. Chancellor Vorton watched the battle from orbit. The Nelvari fleet had 3,000 ships. They were proud vessels built over centuries of careful engineering. They formed perfect battle lines and fired their weapons in coordinated volleys. The Kethari absorbed every attack. Their organic hulls healed faster than they could be damaged. Their ships moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually perfectly planned. The collective mind controlled every vessel as if they were fingers on the same hand. The battle lasted 6 days. By the end, not a single Nelvari warship remained. Vorton escaped on a small transport vessel. As he flew away, he looked back at his planet. The Kethari had covered its surface like a living blanket. They were stripping it layer by layer, consuming everything. Billions of Nelvari died in those 6 days. A civilization that had existed for 10,000 years was gone in less than a week. News of the Nelvari defeat spread through the Federation like fire. Panic gripped every species. If the mighty Nelvari could fall so quickly, what chance did anyone else have? The Draxian Empire sent their greatest fleet to stop the swarm at the Carillion Nebula. The Draxians were warriors. Their ships carried plasma cannons that could melt through any armor. Their soldiers were raised from birth to fight. Admiral Draxvol commanded the assault personally. He had never lost a battle in his 200 years of service. All ships, attack formation Gamma, he ordered. We will show these creatures what it means to face the Draxian Empire. The battle was supposed to be glorious. Instead, it was a massacre. The Kethari adapted to the plasma weapons within minutes. They grew shields that deflected the energy. They developed acids that burned through Draxian hulls. Every weapon the Empire used, the swarm learned to counter almost immediately. Draxval died on his bridge when the swarm overran his flagship. His last transmission was a single word: impossible. The Draxian Empire held for 3 weeks before collapsing entirely. The Krill tried a different approach. They were a hive-mind species, much like the Kethari. Surely, they reasoned, 2 collective consciousnesses could communicate. Perhaps they could find common ground. Counselor Mintal led the diplomatic mission personally. He reached out with his mind, trying to touch the thoughts of the swarm. For a moment, he felt something. A vast intelligence. Older than stars. Cold and hungry, and endless. It noticed him the way a person might notice an insect. Then it consumed him. The Krill hive mind screamed as one of their leaders was absorbed. They felt his death across light years, a pain that echoed through their entire species. The Kethari had not just killed Mintal. They had eaten his thoughts, his memories, his very consciousness. The surviving Krill fled deeper into Federation space. They did not try to communicate again. Admiral Zix then gathered the remaining Federation forces at the Viridian system. It was meant to be the final stand. 10,000 ships from every species that could still fight. The largest fleet in Federation history. Today, we fight for our survival, Zix then announced to his commanders. Today, we show these invaders that the Federation will not die quietly. The battle lasted 4 hours. The Kethari came in waves. Endless waves that never stopped. For every ship the Federation destroyed, 10 more took its place. The swarm adapted to every tactic, every weapon, every strategy. Zix then watched his fleet die around him. Ship after ship exploded or was consumed. Brave officers who had served for centuries were killed in moments. When the battle ended, only 37 Federation vessels remained. 96% of the fleet was gone. Zix then retreated to the capital world of Axion Prime. He had failed. They all had failed. In the council chamber, the surviving leaders gathered. Only 8 of the original 12 species had representatives left. Some had been completely wiped out. Chancellor Vorton looked around at the frightened faces. These were the same leaders who had voted to expel humanity 20 years ago. They had been so confident then, so certain of their power and wisdom. Now they were broken. What options do we have? Asked Thexara. She was the last Draxian counselor. Her entire family was dead. We have no options. Zeeks then admitted. Our military is destroyed. Our shipyards are gone. We cannot produce new weapons fast enough. The swarm will reach the core worlds within 6 months. Silence filled the chamber. 6 months until extinction. Vorton thought about the humans. He remembered Ambassador Carter standing alone in this very room, accepting exile with dignity. He remembered the words the human had spoken. You are afraid of us. Yes, they had been afraid. They had seen humanity's violent history, and their aggressive biology, and their terrifying potential. They had sent them away because they were scared of what humans might become. Now Vorton understood something terrible. They should have been afraid of what the universe might send instead. There is one possibility, he said quietly. Everyone looked at him. The humans. Thexara shook her head. We expelled them. We sent them to die in the Outer Rim. Surely they are gone by now. No. Admiral Zix then said slowly. Our scouts have detected activity in the Outer Rim territories. Large fleets. Advanced technology. The humans did not die. They thrived. Vorton stood up. Then we must ask them for help. They will refuse, someone said. After what we did to them, they will watch us burn. Perhaps, Vorton agreed. But we must try. We have no other choice. He looked at the map, showing the swarm's advance. System after system was going dark. Billions of lives ending. 20 years ago, we called humans monsters, Vorton said. We said they were too violent, too dangerous for civilized space. Now, we need monsters. Now we need the most dangerous species we have ever known. He took a deep breath. I will go myself. I will find the humans. And I will beg them to save us all. The Chancellor left the chamber that night, boarding a small diplomatic vessel. He set course for the Outer Rim, for the darkness where humanity had built their new home. Behind him, the swarm continued its advance. The clock was ticking, and somewhere in the void, human ships watched the Federation burn. The diplomatic vessel carrying Chancellor Vorton crossed into human territory on a cold morning. The ship was old and damaged from the journey. Vorton had traveled for 3 weeks through dangerous space to reach this point. A human patrol ship appeared immediately. It was sleek and fast. Nothing like the clumsy vessels the Federation remembered. Unknown vessel. Identify yourself. A voice said over the communication channel. You have entered human space. State your purpose. Vorton took a deep breath. His 4 eyes were tired. His body ached from the long journey. But he had come too far to turn back now. This is Chancellor Vorton of the Nelvari, former High Chancellor of the Galactic Federation. I request permission to speak with your leaders. I come to ask for help. There was a long silence. Vorton imagined the human officers discussing what to do. Laughing, perhaps. The leader who had banished them was now begging at their door. Follow us, the voice finally said. Any hostile action will result in your destruction. Vorton followed the patrol ship through a series of asteroid fields and nebulae. He saw things that amazed him. Massive space stations hidden in clouds of gas. Mining facilities attached to dead stars. Ships that moved faster than anything he had ever seen. 20 years. The humans had built all this in just 20 years. Unity Station was the largest structure Vorton had ever seen. It was a city floating in space, home to millions of people. Lights glittered across its surface like stars. Ambassador Amy Sullivan was waiting when Vorton stepped off his vessel. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a calm expression. She had been handling human diplomacy for 15 years. Chancellor Vorton, she said. I must admit, I never expected to see you here. Vorton performed the traditional Nelvari bow of respect. It was a gesture he had never used for a human before. Ambassador Sullivan, thank you for receiving me. Amy raised an eyebrow at the bow. Please, follow me. The president is waiting. She led him through corridors filled with humans going about their daily lives. Children laughed and played. Workers carried supplies. Soldiers stood guard at checkpoints. It looked like any healthy civilization, but Vorton noticed something else. These humans did not look weak or broken. They looked strong. They looked confident. They looked like people who had faced hardship and won. President Eric Dawson was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He sat at a long table with Admiral Samuel Grant and several other leaders. They all watched as Vorton entered the room. "Chancellor," Eric said, "please, sit down." Vorton sat. He felt small in this room full of humans. These were the people his Federation had called monsters. These were the people they had sent to die in the darkness. "You know why I am here," Vorton began. "The Kethari," Admiral Grant said. "We have been watching. We know about the fall of the Nelvari homeworld. We know about the destruction of the Draxian Empire. We know the Federation is dying." Vorton nodded slowly. "Then you know our situation. We have no fleet, no weapons, no hope. The swarm will consume everything within months. And you want our help?" Eric said. "Yes." Vorton hesitated. "I know we have no right to ask. I know what we did to you was wrong. We were afraid of your species. We thought you were dangerous." "We are dangerous," Admiral Grant said coldly. "That is exactly why you need us." Dr. Katie Walsh, the Secretary of Humanitarian Affairs, leaned forward. "What is the Federation offering in return?" Vorton had prepared for this question. "Everything. Full reinstatement into the Federation. Territory rights. Reparations for the exile. Political power. Whatever you want, we will give it all." The humans exchanged glances. Vorton could not read their expressions. 20 years ago," Eric said slowly, "you stood in your council chamber and called us violent. You said our biology made us unfit for civilized space. You were afraid of what we might become." "We were fools," Vorton admitted. "We saw your history of wars and we judged you. We did not understand that the same fire that made you fight also made you survive. We have no such fire. When faced with extinction, we do not know how to struggle." Admiral Grant spoke up. "You want us to fight your war for you. I want you to save everyone," Vorton said. "Not just the Federation. Everyone. In 18 months, the swarm will reach your territory. You will have to fight them anyway. The only question is whether we face them together or die separately." The room fell silent. Vorton watched the humans think. He could see them weighing their options. Revenge would be easy. They could let the Federation burn and feel justified. But would they? "Leave us," Eric said. "We need to discuss this among ourselves." Vorton was escorted to a guest quarters. He waited there for 3 days, not knowing what the humans would decide. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his homeworld being consumed. On the 3rd day, Ambassador Sullivan came for him. "The Council has made its decision," she said. "Please follow me." Vorton walked back to the meeting room. His hearts were beating fast. Everything depended on what happened next. President Dawson stood at the head of the table. His face was serious but not angry. "We have debated for 3 days," Eric said. "Some argued that we should refuse, that we should let the Federation suffer the consequences of their actions, that we owed you nothing." Vorton felt his hope fading. "But," Eric continued, "that is not who we are. We did not survive exile by becoming the monsters you accused us of being. We survived by being human. Own. Out. On Hearly was. Out. On Hearly was." Eric continued. "On Hearly was. On Hearly was. On Hearly." Dr. Katie Walsh spoke next. "Humans have always been complicated. Yes, we fight. Yes, we make war. But we also love. We protect. We sacrifice ourselves for strangers. We run toward danger when others run away. That is also human nature." Admiral Grant stood up. "I lost friends in the exile. Good soldiers who died in the Outer Rim because you sent us there. Part of me wants revenge." He paused. "But my soldiers did not die so I could become bitter. They died believing in something better. I will not dishonor their memory by turning away from people who need help." Eric nodded. "Humanity will stand with the Federation against the Kethari. We will fight together. We will win or lose together. Vorton felt tears forming in his 4 eyes. He had come expecting rejection. Instead, he found mercy. Why? He asked. After everything we did to you, why would you help us? Eric smiled slightly. Because it is the right thing to do. Because innocent beings will die if we do nothing. Because we are human. And that is what humans do. Amy Sullivan handed Vorton a communication device. Contact your remaining leaders. Tell them help is coming. Tell them to hold on. Vorton took the device with trembling hands. I do not know how to thank you. Thank us after we win, Admiral Grant said. We have a war to fight. The military began mobilizing that same day. Human ships that had been hidden for 20 years emerged from asteroid fields and nebulae. Soldiers who had trained in secret prepared for the greatest battle in human history. Vorton watched the preparations with wonder. The Federation had underestimated humanity. They had seen only the violence, only the danger. They had not seen the courage, the creativity, the stubborn refusal to give up. Now the galaxy would see what humans could really do. As the fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Laura Bennett stood on the bridge of the Unity. Nathan Brooks was beside her, now commanding his own task force. Are we ready? She asked. Nathan nodded. As ready as we will ever be. Laura looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the swarm was waiting. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. Then let us show them why they should have been afraid of us all along, she said. The human fleet jumped to faster than light speed. The war to save the galaxy had begun. The Kethari had consumed 117 species across 3 galaxies. They had never lost a war. They had never met a force they could not defeat. Then they met the humans. The first battle took place in the Viridian system. The swarm expected easy prey. Their scouts had reported only a small fleet defending the system. They sent 5,000 ships to finish it quickly. Commander Nathan Brooks was waiting for them in the asteroid belt. All ships, scatter formation Delta, Nathan ordered. His voice was calm despite the danger. Remember your training. Do not fight like the Federation. Fight like humans. The Federation had always used careful tactics. Their fleets moved in organized formations. They fired in coordinated volleys. They retreated in orderly lines. The Kethari had learned to counter all of this. Humans did not fight that way. Nathan's ships scattered into the asteroids. Each pilot operated independently, making their own decisions in real time. They used the rocks as cover, as weapons, as shields. They moved in patterns that no computer could predict because there was no pattern, just human instinct. Captain Ryan Cole flew his cruiser directly at a swarm destroyer. At the last moment, he pulled up and released his entire cargo of mining explosives. The explosion took out 3 enemy ships. Lieutenant Maria Santos played music in her cockpit while she fought. She said it helped her concentrate. She destroyed 11 swarm vessels that day while singing along to ancient Earth songs. Sergeant Owen Reed led a boarding party onto a swarm ship. His team of 30 Marines fought through corridors of nightmares. The Kethari were not just ships. They were living creatures. The walls moved. The floors tried to swallow them. Acid dripped from the ceiling. Owen lost half his team. But he reached the core of the ship and planted the explosive himself. He escaped with seconds to spare. The swarm did not understand what was happening. Their collective mind tried to analyze the human tactics. But there were no tactics. Just chaos. Beautiful, deadly chaos. In 4 hours, the humans destroyed 3,000 swarm ships, while losing only 200 of their own. For the first time in their existence, the Kethari retreated. News of the victory spread through what remained of the Federation. The humans had done something impossible. They had beaten the swarm. Admiral Grant coordinated the next phase of the war from Unity Station. He stood before a holographic map, showing the entire galaxy. We hurt them at Viridian, he said to his commanders. But we did not stop them. They will adapt. They always adapt. So we need to stay ahead of them. Dr. Megan Price stepped forward. She was the chief science officer. a brilliant woman who had spent 20 years studying alien biology. The swarm is part organic, part mechanical, she explained. They learn by consuming. Every species they destroy, they absorb that knowledge. That is how they adapt so quickly. So they know everything the Federation knew, Admiral Laura Bennett said. Yes. But they do not know us. They have never consumed a human. They do not understand how we think. Understand. They do not understand how we think. Understand, Grant nodded. That is our advantage. We need to use it. The humans developed new strategies. They did not fight the swarm with logic. They fought with creativity, with emotion, with the chaos that lived in every human heart. Engineer Leo Barnes designed weapons that made no sense to the swarm. Bombs that played loud music before exploding. Missiles that released confusing signals. Devices that created illusions of ships that did not exist. They are a hive mind, Leo explained. They think as one. So we overload them with nonsense. Give them too many things to analyze at once. It worked. The swarm's collective consciousness struggled to process the flood of strange data. For creatures who had conquered galaxies through cold logic, human randomness was like a virus they could not cure. The Battle of Nelvari Prime was the turning point. Chancellor Vortan had asked the humans to help reclaim his homeworld. It was a suicide mission. The swarm had millions of creatures on the surface, still harvesting the remains of the planet. Admiral Grant assigned the mission to Sergeant Tara Mitchell. Tara was a legend among human soldiers. She had fought in the Outer Rim for 15 years. She had scars covering most of her body. She never smiled. But when she gave orders, people listened. We are dropping onto a planet full of monsters, Tara told her team of 100 Marines. Our job is to destroy the main hive structure. That will disrupt their operations across the entire sector. Private Danny Webb raised his hand. He was young, barely 20 years old. Sarge, how do we get out after we plant the explosives? Tara looked at him. We figure that out when we get there. The drop was brutal. 30 Marines died before they even reached the ground. The swarm was waiting for them. Creatures with too many legs and mouths full of acid attacked from every direction. Tara led the charge personally. She fired her weapon until it overheated. Then she picked up another one. When that ran out, she used her knife. When her knife broke, she used her fists. The other Marines followed her example. They fought like animals. Like the violent primitives the Federation had always called them. Private Danny Webb took a hit that cracked his armor. He kept fighting. When his arm was injured, he switched hands. He made it all the way to the hive structure before collapsing. Tara reached the core with only 12 Marines still standing. The room was filled with organic matter, pulsing like a heart. Plant the charges, she ordered. Then the swarm surrounded them, thousands of creatures, pouring in from every direction. There was no escape. Tara activated her communication device. Admiral, the charges are set. We cannot get out. Grant's voice came through, heavy with emotion. Sergeant, we will find a way. There is no way, sir, but the mission is complete. That is what matters. She looked at her remaining soldiers. They were injured, exhausted, and surrounded by death. But not one of them looked afraid. It has been an honor, she told them. The explosion lit up the night sky of Nelvari Prime. The hive structure collapsed, sending a shockwave through the swarm's network. In orbit, the human fleet felt the effect immediately. The swarm ships became uncoordinated, confused. Their collective mind had been damaged. Admiral Bennett ordered the attack. All ships, press forward. This is our chance. The battle lasted 3 more hours. When it ended, the swarm had been pushed out of the Nelvari system completely, but the cost was high. Sergeant Mitchell was gone. So were 87 of her Marines. They had given everything. Chancellor Vortan stood on the bridge of a human ship, watching his homeworld. The planet was scarred and broken, but it was free. Your soldiers died for my world, he said to Admiral Bennett. I do not know how to repay such a debt. Laura looked at the planet below. She thought about Tara Mitchell, a woman she had known for 20 years. A friend. They did not die for your world, Laura said quietly. They died because it was the right thing to do. They died being human. The war continued. Battle after battle, the humans pushed the swarm back. They took losses, heavy losses, but they never stopped fighting. Across the galaxy, the surviving Federation species watched in amazement. The creatures they had called monsters were dying to protect them. The species they had expelled was fighting harder than anyone ever had, and the Kethari, the swarm that had consumed 100 civilizations, began to feel something new: fear. For the first time in their ancient existence, they were afraid. The final battle took place in the darkness between galaxies. This was where the swarm had built their main fleet, millions of ships waiting to consume everything. Admiral Samuel Grant commanded the combined armada. Humans and Federation species stood together for the first time in history. 2,000 human vessels and 500 Federation ships. It was everything they had left. Chancellor Vortan stood on the bridge beside Grant. So did the remaining leaders of a dozen species. They still outnumber us 20-1, Vortan observed, looking at the tactical display. Sounds like a fair fight, Grant replied. The battle began at dawn by Earth Standard Time. The swarm attacked in waves, endless rivers of ships pouring toward the Allied fleet. The darkness of space lit up with explosions. Admiral Laura Bennett led the first assault group. Her ship, the Unity, plunged into the center of the enemy formation. Target their command nodes, she ordered. Cut off their coordination. Commander Nathan Brooks commanded the second group. His ships circled the edges of the battle, striking weak points and retreating before the swarm could respond. Keep moving, Nathan told his pilots. Never let them predict your next action. Captain Ryan Cole, now missing 3 fingers from an earlier battle, flew his cruiser through a cloud of swarm fighters. He was laughing as he destroyed them one by one. Come on, you ugly bugs, he shouted. Is that all you have? The Federation ships fought alongside the humans. They had learned from watching humanity over the past months. They fought with less order now. More instinct. It was not natural for them. But they tried. Admiral Zeeks then of the Veleran led his remaining forces in a direct charge at a swarm carrier. His ship was heavily damaged, fire spreading through the corridors. But he kept fighting until the carrier exploded. For the Federation, he said before his ship was consumed by the blast. And for humanity, days passed. The battle raged without pause. Ships died on both sides. Heroes fell and were forgotten. The void filled with debris and bodies. Dr. Megan Price worked in the medical bay, treating wounded soldiers. Her hands were covered in blood, both red and alien colors. She had not slept in 4 days. Doctor, we have more incoming, a nurse called. Then we keep working, Megan replied. She did not stop. She could not stop. On the 7th day, the swarm launched their strongest attack. The Queen herself led the assault. She was the heart of the collective, the mind that controlled billions. Grant saw her ship approaching on the tactical display. It was massive, larger than any station humans had ever built. A living mountain floating in space. That is our target, he announced. If we destroy the Queen, we break their will. Laura brought the Unity alongside the flagship. How do we get close enough? Their defenses are too strong. Grant looked at his officers. They were exhausted. Many were wounded. But their eyes still burned with determination. We create a distraction, he said. Something so big they cannot ignore it. Nathan understood immediately. You want a suicide run. I want volunteers only, Grant said. No one is ordered to do this. 50 ships volunteered. Their captains recorded final messages to their families. They said goodbye to friends. Then they flew directly at the Queen's defenses. Captain Danny Webb was among them. He was no longer a private. Tara Mitchell's sacrifice had made him a leader. Now he followed her example. For Sergeant Mitchell, he said as his ship entered the wall of fire. For everyone we lost. The 50 ships created chaos in the swarm formation. They destroyed dozens of enemy vessels before being overwhelmed. But they opened a gap. Laura took the Unity through at maximum speed. Her ship was burning, systems failing, crew dying around her. But she reached the Queen's ship. "All weapons, fire everything," she commanded. The Unity unleashed its entire arsenal at point-blank range. The Queen's defenses shattered. Her hull cracked open. But it was not enough. The Queen still lived. Laura made a decision. All hands, abandon ship. Now. Her crew evacuated in escape pods. Laura stayed on the bridge. "Admiral, what are you doing?" Nathan shouted over the communication channel. "Finishing the job," Laura replied. She aimed her dying ship at the heart of the Queen. The Unity, the symbol of human resilience, made its final journey. The explosion was visible from across the battlefield. The Queen's ship broke apart. Her death scream echoed through the collective mind of every swarm creature. For a moment, everything stopped. The swarm ships drifted aimlessly. Their connection was broken. Their mother was gone. Then, something unexpected happened. A signal came from the remaining swarm vessels. For the first time in their ancient history, the Kethari spoke. "Why do you fight?" the collective voice asked. "You cannot win. We are infinite," President Dawson responded from a communication station on Grant's flagship. His voice was steady and clear. "We fight because that is what humans do. We fight for our families, our friends, our future. We fight for species that hate us, and worlds we have never seen. We fight because the universe told us we could not survive, and we never learned to accept that answer." He paused, looking at the display showing billions of swarm creatures. "You call yourselves infinite, but you have never faced anything like us. We are human, and we do not stop." The swarm retreated. They did not negotiate or surrender. They simply left. Their collective will had been shattered against the wall of human determination. They fled into the void between galaxies, seeking easier prey. The war was over. 1 year later, the new Galactic Federation was formed. It was not the old organization that had expelled humanity. This was something better. Humans sat at its head, not as conquerors, but as guardians. The ceremony took place on Unity Station. Chancellor Vorton personally presented the Medal of Unity to Ambassador Amy Sullivan. It was the highest honor any species could give. "We called you monsters," Vorton said during his speech. "We were wrong. You are something far more amazing. You are protectors. You are heroes. You are human." The crowd cheered. Humans and aliens stood together, celebrating their shared survival. Admiral Grant watched from the back of the room. He was tired. He had lost so many friends. Laura Bennett, Tara Mitchell, Danny Webb, thousands of others whose names would be remembered forever. Nathan Brooks found him afterward. "How do you feel?" Nathan asked. Grant thought about the question. "Empty," he admitted. "We won, but the cost was so high. Was it worth it? After everything they did to us?" Grant looked around at the celebration. He saw alien children playing with human children. He saw old enemies becoming new friends. He saw hope. "We did not do it for them," Grant said slowly. "We did it because we are human, and that is something they can never take from us." Dr. Megan Price joined them. Her hair had turned white from radiation exposure during the war, but she was smiling. "The Queen's body is being studied," she reported. "We are learning so much about the swarm. If they ever return, we will be ready." "They will not return," Grant said with certainty. "They learned something they never knew before." "What is that?" Nathan asked. "Fear. They learned to fear humans, and that fear will keep them away forever." Outside Unity Station, the stars burned bright. The galaxy was at peace for the first time in years. Ships from a dozen species traveled freely through space, no longer afraid. And everywhere, in every system, every planet, every station, people told stories about the humans. The species that had been expelled and left to die. The species that came back and saved everyone. The monster the galaxy had feared became the guardian they needed. Because that was the truth about humanity. They were capable of terrible violence, but they were also capable of incredible love. They could fight wars, but they could also forgive. They could hate, but they could also save their enemies. That night, Vorton stood on a balcony overlooking the celebration. He thought about his homeworld, now being slowly rebuilt. He thought about the billions who had died. He thought about the humans who had given their lives for strangers. I do not understand them, he said quietly to himself, but I am grateful they exist. Somewhere among the stars, the Kethari drifted in the darkness. They would never forget the species that had beaten them. They would never return to that galaxy, because the humans were watching, and that was enough to keep the universe safe.